What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Hello, everyone. Listen, so tonight we're going to be talking about wellness. Wellness. So, listen, before we really dive in, I need you guys to do me a favor. Go ahead and share this live. We're going to be up here for about 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes or so. We're going to do a quick deep dive into what wellness is and what that looks like and how whole health wellness impacts our life. How whole health wellness impacts our life. Anita, how are you? How are you? How are you? Rosalind, how are you? Listen, again, I'm gonna give you guys about a minute to go ahead and share this live if you can. Again, go ahead and share this live. I want to make sure that everyone has an awareness of what whole health wellness is and how that affects your life. We're gonna have a little fun today, and then at the end, I'm gonna take some questions as well about anything that you guys have as far as what whole health wellness is and kind of what that looks like for you. All right. So if you have already shared, we're going to get started. So tonight we're going to talk again about whole health wellness and what whole health wellness is. Okay. So we know that there are many different, we know that really since the pandemic, there has been a strong call to the mental health field because we know that COVID-19 did one on all of us. There was so much that happened in the middle of the pandemic that really allowed us to really evaluate a lot of our mental and emotional capacities, a lot of our mental and emotional well-being, right? A lot of us were forced to kind of be home with loved ones that we did not like. And so we were kind of forced to talk about conversations that we could avoid going to work every day, right? Because a lot of times we get super busy with life just be life and for a lot of us, right? And so because of that, COVID was kind of really stopped life for many of us, and so we really had to stay home and really deal with what we could just go home and not deal with. COVID really allowed us to kind of really slow down and really reevaluate what was life for us. And so because of that, what we do know now is that the emerging call to mental and emotional health, it has went to an all-time rise. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. We're going to talk about different avenues to seek mental and emotional support. And then I'm going to give you some really great information about whole health wellness. And then again, I'm going to ask you guys some questions. So again, if you've come on, if you've just gotten on, I need you to share this live for me. We want to spread the word about what whole health wellness is and what that looks like for us as we move into the next year. Because listen, the next year is going to be here in less than about 50 days. So with that being said, we want to make sure that we are moving into the new year with new perspectives, new ideas, new ways to reimagine our life moving forward, and that we don't live and go into the new year with trauma. All right. So we know that there are many different stigmas right now that are associated with mental health. There are many different stigmas that are associated, sorry, with the ongoing, with people, feeling like, if I go see a therapist or if I go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, that, that I'm crazy or that something is wrong with me. And so mental health is more than just a diagnosis. Okay. Mental health and the world of mental health is more than just a diagnosis. If you're on right now, I want you to type that into the comments. Mental health is more than just a diagnosis. It's more than just sitting on a couch. It's more than just allowing yourself to talk about issues and taking medication. Right? A lot of times what therapy is it is an avenue to invite other people into your world, because so many times, and we'll talk about this later on, but so many times when we're left to the own devices of our perspective, we get it wrong. We get it wrong, right? we get it wrong. And so a lot of times what therapy does is it allows someone to come into your life, come into your worldview, your perspective, how you perceive things, and it allows someone to possibly say, hey, let's restructure this and let's look at it from this angle. Let's refocus this and let's look at it from this angle. Let's, hey, I hear you say this, but what about this? Right. And so it's more than just a diagnosis. Sometimes it's all about reframing and restructuring our thought process, because when you think a certain type of way for a very, very, very long time, you think that is right. And it's like, but that thought process or that perspective could be in some way laced from a space of trauma, right? And so we're going to go through that. All right. So we're going to talk about what whole health wellness is. So whole health wellness. So even in therapy, even in my practice as a deliverance minister, even as a wellness coach, I use a 3 model or a 3 pillar approach, which is called 3D wellness, right? And so all of us know this. All of us have heard of this, which is our mind, our body, and our soul. 3 compartments that make up who we are. So listen, if I were you guys, I would take out a sheet of paper. I would take out some notes. So a part of what I do is I teach as well. So this may seem a little bit like a classroom. So if you got questions, put them in the comments. If something comes to your head that you want to ask, put that in the comments. I want to make sure that I ask the things that you guys have. All right. So again, whole health wellness really looks at 3 dimensions of your life, or it compartmentalizes or it summarizes who and what you are in 3 compartments, right? Your mind, how you think, how you perceive, what you believe, your body, right? Your physical body, and your soul. Your mind, your body, and your soul. Okay. And so in that, it fits inside of the pillar or the mode or the model of whole health wellness, because whole health wellness has so that's kind of my approach to whole health wellness. It kind of compartmentalized into those 3 different things. However, according to counseling practitioners, it falls into a 4 model view. All right. So that first 4 model is me. Write in the comments, me. The first part of whole health wellness is you. The first part of whole health wellness is you. And the reason why the first part of whole health wellness is you is because oftentimes that is the most forgotten part about wellness. That is the most, like, when your day is over, when everything, when all of your responsibilities are done, that's when you think about you. That's when, and I'm guilty, right? That's when we think about eating. That's when we think about, hey, I need to go do this. I need to do this for myself, right? But in whole health wellness, it restructures and reframes and say, hey, the first part of whole health wellness is me, not my job, not my responsibilities, not my aims and my goals, but it's me, right? So before we go on, while we're in the perspective of whole health wellness, I want you to ask yourself, what was the last thing you've done for yourself? If we're going to go on a journey towards whole health wellness, I want you to ask yourself, what was the last thing you were able to do for yourself? Whether that be getting your nails done, whether that be getting a haircut, whether that be going to the movies by yourself, whatever that looks like. But what was the last thing that you've done only for yourself? And a lot of us, oftentimes, we trick ourselves out of doing things for ourselves, because a lot of times we try to tag along other responsibilities while we're trying to do things for ourselves. So, for instance, case in point, throughout this live, I'll be very transparent, and I'll give examples as well. So even though I am one who teach wellness, even though I'm one who is a wellness coach, we all still struggle with that, right? So let's say about, when was it? 2 weeks ago, I made it a very intentional day to not do anything, any work, anything. I wanted to spend the day just for myself. So I got a haircut, got a manicure, got a pedicure, got a facial, and I got a call from someone who I love dearly. That was like, "Hey, can you do X, Y, and Z for me?" And I was like, "Well, today is my mental health day, so I can't." And so then I started playing reasons in my way as to why I should make an excuse to do it. Like, they've always been good to me, and if I do this for them, then they can do this for me. And so I try to sneak it in there, right? But even in this approach is asking you, what do you do for yourself and only yourself, and not feel guilty about it? She said, once I send my daughter off to school, I get that, right? Because oftentimes, right, we feel guilty doing things for ourselves. I see a lot of us up here, we are believers, right? Especially in cultures where we're taught, to be a servant, and cultures where we're taught, that we need to put others before ourselves. When we're taught that, it's better to bless someone than to receive a blessing, it often seems like a sin to do self-care, right? It can feel like a sin to put yourself first, especially when you come from hyper submissive cultures, as I've come from, even in my growing up. You're taught that you need to do things for everyone else and then apply yourself to whatever you need to go on, right? And so it seems very hard to really look at what needs to be done for yourself, because again, we have those values, which is a part of whole health wellness, right? It's a part of those values, those religious values, right? I need to put others first before I put myself first, right? So again, the first compartment of whole health wellness is me. The second compartment is self-care. We just talked about that. Self-care. So here's the trip up about self-care. We've equated self-care to getting your hair done. And granted, these things do make up a level of self-care. These things do make up a level of, being able to care and love for oneself. But we've equated, or we've allowed ourselves to sum up whole health wellness or self-care to, again, getting, a haircut, or going out and getting a manicure, or buying clothes, or going shopping. And while those things do allow you to feel a sense of happiness and gratitude, that is not the bulk of self-care. Self-care, in its most simplest definition, is being able to listen to the needs of self and answering those needs. Right? So if your body in the moment is saying, "Hey, I need some rest," and you have a deadline of midnight, or you have a deadline of 3 weeks from now, and your body is saying, "Hey, I need rest right now." Being able to listen to yourself and say, "Hey, my body is saying I need rest." Listening to that and obeying that's self-care. That's taking care of self. Self-care also is a setting of boundaries. Self-care often look like the setting of boundaries, right? There's sometimes and there's some family members, right, that you can't do a whole week with. There's some family members that even for the holiday times, here it is, even for the holiday times, there are some places you may say, "Hey, I know that the family gathering is 3 days long, but I'm going to do a day trip." That's self-care. That's listening to the mental and emotional needs of self and saying, "Hey, this is what I can take. This is what I can offer. This is what I can't." Because honestly, I see you guys in the comments, but honestly, self-care is less about haircuts. Self-care is less about haircuts. Self-care is less about barbershops. Self-care is less about Gucci and Louis and more about the setting of boundaries. Listening to oneself and saying, "Listen, this is what I can do, and this is what I can't do." And I'm going to honor that restriction. I'm going to honor that boundary. Right? After self-care, then the third one is professional care. So the first component to whole health wellness, again, is me. All right. The second component to whole health wellness is professional care. I'm sorry, is self-care. The third component is professional care. All right, so me, self-care, and then professional care. All right. So even in the order of these, the reason why me come first and then self-care comes first and then professional care comes first is so there's a theoretical foundation called person-centered, right? And in the theoretical foundation of person-centered theory or framework, it is the ultimate being of being able to allow someone to have positive regard for themselves, even outside of what a therapist or wellness coach can give them, right? So even after that session, even after someone goes to the doctor, even after someone goes to a therapist, then being able to take those needs, right, and still apply them even after the session, even like church, right? Being able to go after service and apply what's been taught to your everyday life. So the third component to self-care again is professional care. This look like doctors, this look like therapists and wellness coaches, this look like those who we know to study the work that can advance us and our well-being. For some of us right now, self-care could be looking like getting a checkup. A part of whole health wellness is, like, for instance, it is known of my family, we do not like doctors, right? And I actually have this one aunt that she loves the doctor. Y'all don't know what it is. She loves the doctor. I don't know what it is, but like, I mean, if I told her I'm going to the doctor, right? And so it's like literally almost every other day she's literally at the doctor. But even with that, sorry, what I've learned is that she knows the value and the power of professional care. She knows that in a moment when I can't take care of myself, I need to seek out someone who studied and learned to help me advance my whole well-being. Right? So that's the epitome of professional care. And the last component, again, so there are four, the last component is a curse word to a lot of us. It's community. That's my sister loves to visit the doctors. Right. The last component, this is where we're going to park at for a while, is community. A part of whole health wellness is community. And because of the traumas and the triggers of our past, oftentimes, y'all, we can think about ourselves, we can do self-care, we can go to the doctor, we can go to a therapist, but a lot of us, we ain't doing community. I would argue that community is one of the most important parts of whole health wellness. Because oftentimes when we're in, especially during like the holiday times and when we're dealing with grief and depression or anxiety or any other mood symptoms, a lot of times what happens is we think that we're the only one dealing with what we're dealing with. And we put ourselves on this mental and emotional island and as if it's only us, right? And so surrounding your people with as a community would allow you to say, hey, you know what? It's not just me. Right? So I want you to write this. I want you guys, if you're taking this, I want you to write this down. When you're in community, you need several types of relationships. This is going to really be really beneficial for a lot of you all. So this is what I teach in wellness coaching. So this is a freebie for tonight, and I also teach my actual therapy clients as well. But you need three types of relationships. All right. The first one It's upward relationships. Someone type that in the comments. Upward relationships. Upward relationships. These are people that you look up to. These are people that are mentors. These are people who are, if you're spiritual pastors or leaders. These are people who are, spiritual fathers and mothers. People who have been where you are, have passed the test of your current space of life, and can pull you up in a moment of needing rescue. People who can identify your triggers. These are people who can identify your traumas and can say, hey, you know what? I know where you are, but I also know where you're going. People who you can look up to. Okay? You need upward relationship. We'll get to that. The second one is you need downward relationships. Downward relationships. Put that in the comments. Downward relationships. And I'll come back to downward as to why you need it. The third one that you need is horizontal relationships. Horizontal relationships. Okay? So again, these are the three relationships you need. You need upward, horizontal, and downward relationships. Okay? Again, we are talking about community, right? And in community, you need all three of these. So why do you need these three? Again, you need upward because these are people who you can look up to, people who you can aspire to be, people who are where you want to be in life, right? Then you have horizontal relationships. Horizontal are people who are on the same, these are peers, these are co-workers, these are people who are where you are now, who can identify with your current context, who are walking the same walk, who are in the same space that you are. These are people who, maybe let's say, you may, as you're going throughout your life issues or struggles, they're able to identify again where you are, and they can keep you accountable in a moment of needing accountability. Right? So we have upward, people who can pull you up. We have horizontal, people who can identify with where you are now. And then we have downward. So before I go to downward, the reason why horizontal by themselves don't work is because sometimes we have the blind leading the blind. Put that in the comments. The blind leading the blind. Because while you can identify with my story, while you can identify with where I am now, let's say if I get stuck in a ditch and you get stuck in a ditch, how are we going to get out? Right? How are we going to make it out of this thing? And so I need people who I can not only identify with at the peer level, but people I can identify with who have been where I've been and who can now pull me up. Does that make sense? So upward, we have horizontal, and then we have downward. The reason why we need downward is because while we're getting all of this healing and while we're looking at ourselves in total transformation, there's a boy or a girl or a man or a woman behind you who's coming behind you who also needs healing. And so downward looks like mentees. Downward look like students or spiritual sons or daughters or people who are around you who you can see yourself in and say, hey, you know what? Like, I see myself in you. I know where you are now, and I want to help you. Right? And so the reason why downward is so important for a lot of you all is, or really for all of us, is because the more you continue to be healed, you can now heal somebody else, who can now heal somebody else, who can now heal somebody else. And so now we have an entire world who's now being healed because of your decision to employ downward relationships. Right? A lot of us have to become, we find ourselves right there, base level at horizontal, people who we can identify with, right? And so if I could take a quick inventory of the people who I've identified with, or people who I've been around, or that I've counseled, or that I've been in communication with, what I found out is that most people don't have an issue with horizontal or down, especially downward. We can do downward because we can tell somebody what to do, right? But the issue sometimes is those upward. Or for some of us, it is just horizontal. Right. So I want you to do this. I want you to take 1 minute, and I want you to take a mental inventory, an emotional inventory. And I want you to inventory your life right now. And I want you to ask yourself, which relationship are you lacking right now? Which relationship are you lacking? Or which relationship are you hesitant about inviting into your space? Are you hesitant to invite upward? Are you hesitant to invite a community around you who knows your past, where you're going at now, but also where you're going in your future? Or are you hesitant about downward because you're afraid of telling your story? You're afraid that telling your story is going to bring embarrassment. Are you afraid that if you expose, or if you allow yourself to be vulnerable in a moment, that it's going to be weaponized against you? What part or which relationship do you have issues inviting into your space? And if you feel comfortable, again, you don't have to, but if you feel comfortable, I want you to put that in the comments. And if you, again, I want this to be a space where you guys feel comfortable, you guys feel free. So again, you don't have to put that in the comments, but if you feel open and welcoming to do that, kind of put where you feel like you are in that. All right. So outside of that, she said, "Oh, right. For sure, for sure." So as we're moving out of that, one of the things that I want you guys to know is that in order to embrace whole health wellness, we talked about several different things. We talked about that the first part of optimal whole health wellness is you recognizing you, embracing you. The second part is self care, right? The third part is professional care, right? And the fourth one is community, right? So now, while that's the practitioner model, again, one of the things, because I know that the people who are drawn to kind of what I do are a very unique bunch, and so what and so what I do is I've kind of um I've kind of summarized those four compartments into three different things. And so I would argue that whole health wellness really comprises of three different parts of who we are, which is our mind, again, our body, and our soul. Right. So the reason why I believe that who we are and is comprised of our mind is because, again, what you believe affects what you feel, and what you feel affects how you behave in the world, how you show up in the world. Right. So if I actively believe, if I actively think that I'm less than, I'm going to feel inadequate. And based upon the feeling of inadequacy, my behaviors, or my action patterns are going to display what I initially thought in my head. Right. And so that's why a lot of times we're in spaces and places, especially like in religious contexts, we allow ourselves to involve in what we call behavior modification. Right. And so with behavior modification, my issue with behavior modification is that there is no permanent, or there is no restructuring of the mental and emotional capacity of a person. So while I'm teaching you how to behave, your mind, right, is still operating the opposite of how you're behaving. So if I only teach you behavior modification on how to behave, but not how to think, what I create is called cognitive dissonance. Put that in the comments. Cognitive dissonance. Because if I think something, and if I believe something, and if I think something, but I behave differently, there's a gap, right? There's a gap between what I think and what I do. I'm literally trying not to. I'm literally trying not to preach this thing, but there's several scripture references that we see where Jesus was interested in the restructuring of the mind. You never see Jesus engulfing or trying to introduce behavior modification, right? Jesus literally, she said, preach, and I'm literally trying to do that, but I really feel it stirring. But you never literally see, you literally never see the Jesus preaching behavior modification. You never see Jesus saying, "Hey, do this." What you see is you see him teaching and preaching the restructuring of the mind. All throughout scripture, you see scriptures like in to think on things above and not of this world. You see scriptures talking about to transform your mind, to renew your mind. You see scriptures that talk about the renewing of the mind. Right? You see scriptures that talks to us about what it looks like to think differently. Right? Because, and the reason why, I'm literally not trying to preach, y'all, but that thing is stirring in my belly. The reason, right? The reason why we don't see Jesus ever engaging in behavior modification, because if Jesus was to ever engulf in behavior modification, what he would have created would have been a legalistic culture. Jesus was not interested in only behavior modification, because only engulfing in behavior modification says that, hey, if you do this, if you act like this, then you have this. So we literally never ever see Jesus promoting behavior modification, because behavior modification leads to legalism. Because now that I've changed my behaviors, now I'm owed this. Now I'm due this. I deserve this now because I changed my behaviors. Does this make sense? All right, so I'm gonna pull out of that because that's not where we're trying to go tonight. But outside of that, right? Our goal is to make sure that we are restructuring and reframing our minds, that we are realtering the way that we think, because how we think is affected by what we do. All right. So again, my approach is mind, body, and soul, right? And the reason why the soul is important, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in some more things that we're going to do, but the reason why our soul is so important in whole health wellness is because our soul is the filtration system. Write that in the comments. Your soul, hallelujah, your soul is the filtration system. Your soul is the filtration system. Because your soul makes up 3 points. I literally feel like writing on my whiteboard. Next time, I think I'm gonna have my whiteboard in the background, because I feel like my teaching type of thing come on me. But if I would literally break this down, I could literally show you. So you have the mind, then you have the body, and then you have the soul. The soul is then broken down into 3 components. Right? Your soul is, what you say? Right. Your soul, right, is your mind, your will, and your emotions. Right. So we have whole health wellness is so. I literally wish I had something to write this down now. But whole health wellness, think about a box. So a mind, body, and soul, right? Put it in a box. Outside of that, so now inside of the soul component, that then breaks down again to three compartments, which is then our mind, our will, and our emotions, right? The reason why our soul is a filtration system, one, because oftentimes when you experience something over and over and over again, you gain a perception about that thing. So, for instance, let's say if I'll use Marquise up here. Let's say if Marquise continues to pinch me, he continues to pinch me, and he never says sorry. My perception, which is the mind part, my perception about Marquise is that he's rude, that he's violent, that he doesn't like me, right? Now I've gained a perception about him that's now harbor in my soul. So now every time I see him, there's an offense that happens because my soul has now filtrated information about him based upon my experience with him. Does this make sense? So in our soul, there's a mind, then our will. Our will is a thing that we actively do. So in our soul, I now think that Marquis is rude, he's inconsiderate, he's violent, he doesn't like me. That's my perception, my mind. The will part of that is so now when I see him, I get an attitude. I'm willfully not going to speak to him because I now perceive that he's rude, that he's arrogant, that he's violent, right? Mind, my will, the will is the action behind the perception, and then my emotions. Now there are emotions that are tied to my perception and my actions that are followed through about who and what Marquis is. Right. And so the reason why the soul now, talking about the soul, the reason why the soul is a filtration system is because let's say the next person comes and does the same thing and pinch me. Now I think that they're rude and that they're nasty and that they're violent. After a while, when people keep pinching me, now my perception and my action goes from that Marquis is rude and violent, that people in the world, are you listening, are violent and rude and disrespectful. So now, going back to community, so now when I embrace a community or now when I'm around people who don't pinch me, now I shun away from them because my soul has now filtrated and now came up with a conclusion about who and what people are in general. So now the information that I've gathered about Marquis and those who have pinched me has now filtrated to spit out, hey, everybody's like that. Don't deal with nobody. Look at the last couple of experiences, and this is going to be homework I'm going to give you guys. Look at the last couple of people that have did you wrong. Let's go with that one. Let's look at from COVID. We're not because I know that can go from ever, right? Let's look at from 2020 when COVID first hit. Let's look at from where COVID originally happened until today, right now, our current context of right now, where we are now, from 2020 to right now. I want you to, in your mind, think about all of the people who've done you wrong. Based upon the series of people who've done you wrong, What is your conclusion about people based upon your perception about what happened from 2020 until now? Ask yourself, what do I think? What do I perceive? What do I believe? How do I behave in a context that has hurt me or did me wrong repeatedly from 2020 to now? How do I now behave because of that? And is it the byproduct of the improper filtration of my soul? Right? And I'll end with this. So, because here's the thing about it. Here's the thing about that. Information is information, right? Information is information. So, what I mean by that is, for instance, information is information like water is water. And this is why I say that. You know that, well, some of us, I don't know where y'all live at, praise God. But you know that the process from the water that comes out of our sink to to its original state, it goes through what? A filtration process, right? Some of us on our sinks, we have what's called purifiers or filtration systems. What that filtration system says is that, hey, this is the water. Undeniably, this is H2O. Undeniably. What happened to you, undeniably. Right? What the filtration system says, which is so again, when we're talking about the soul, so the soul again is that filtration system. That your soul is like that purifier on the faucet, right? So this is the information. This is actually what happened to you. Your soul is the filtration system. Water is still water coming through that. The lack of proper filtration says that what should have been filtered to a positive experience, which is clean water, still came out dirty. Your perception about what happened still came out negatively or falsely because of the lack of proper filtration. So another homework assignment, and this is not really homework, I guess you think about it right now. But another thing that I want you to think about is what in your life or what in your soul causes you to continue coming out with the same negative filtrated information about people, the world, experiences that you're having. Right? What in your life allows you to come out with negative information about people? Like, for instance, this literally just happened to me Sunday. And I'll get and we'll be done. So someone walked by me. Well, one, they always walk by me in service. They never speak. I don't like, I'm from the country, y'all. So I love people that speak. They never speak. So it's okay, And so every Sunday never speak. And this past Sunday, I really felt like, hey, maybe I should just say hey, because we sit in the same area, things like that. And so I spoke, and it was like, hey, I actually wanted to, to reach out to you about some things that I'm doing at the university that I work for. They're having like a panel. I would like for you to speak up there, but I'm really shy, and I'm a really strong introvert, and I didn't really know how to ask you about it, so I just kind of just stayed to myself. Now, all this time, I thought that they were nasty and they didn't want to speak, right? That was the way that I filtered that information based upon my experience. Remember, talking about experience, right? Based upon my prior experience, because I'm from the country, we talk, we speak, right? So for me, it's normal. It's my custom. But now I realize, no, they're an introvert. They didn't know how to approach me, which I don't know why, but they didn't know how to approach me, right? But my soul filtrated information about that person based upon my current or previous context. that was not correct, that was not accurate. All right. So again, I want you guys to go home or tonight, think about what in your life have you not or do you not filtrate correctly because of the improper use of your soul or the improper filtration of your soul. All right. The next thing I have for you to do, guys, is if you have not listen, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be talking about more. Well, before I do that, I'm if you have any questions about what I asked tonight, put them in the comments. I really, really, really want you guys. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. So yeah, if you have any comments, you can put them in here. I'm sorry, if you have any questions or comments, you can put them down here. But while they're doing that, listen, guys, I'm going to be doing a 3-day wellness webinar similar to this. But we're going to be talking about a lot of great things. So this is kind of like surface of what I want to talk about. So I have a lot of things. Listen, guys, I've been studying the world of counseling psychology for about 7 years now. So I'm not this stuff don't just come by divine revelation, but there's also research and study that comes with it. So y'all, there's research and revelation. Put that in the comments. Research and revelation. So it's not just all stuff that God gives me, it's also things that I research and that I study with degree and have degrees to prove it. So listen, guys, I'm going to be doing a 3-day wellness workshop. So if you have not, go ahead to my website. I'm going to put it in for you guys. Go ahead to my website and make sure that you guys register for the wellness challenge that's going to be happening. All right, so go to our website at joshuasimpson.org. When you go up there, it's gonna, if you go to the wellness page, it's gonna give you, if you go to the, like midway on the first page, it's gonna show you guys what exactly it is and how to register. I'm gonna be back up here in December, so make sure you guys are in tune for that. It's gonna be amazing. If there, I'm gonna look see if there are there any questions. I'm in one right now. Yes, I'm gonna keep it up here as far as a replay. Absolutely, absolutely, there will be a replay. Do you guys have any questions? Listen, because outside of this setting, you may have to book a wellness session. So if you have any questions about anything wellness or mental health, go ahead and ask now. Also on the website, guys, I have some merch coming out. I have a lot of great information that's going to be up there as well. I'm about to open up well, they are open up now. I have wellness consultations that are being open, so we'll be able to do what we did tonight, kind of one-on-one, but it'll be personalized just for you to kind of talk through things that you have, that you want to deal with or kind of talk through. So definitely go on my website for that as well. And I have something that's going to be really amazing at the beginning of the year. So be in tune for that. Again, if you have not already, go ahead to my website and register in RSVP for our 3-day wellness. Is there any other questions? All right. Well, I don't think you guys have any questions. So if not, also if you have not if you have not already and you're not watching from our business page, go ahead to my business page. Go ahead and like and subscribe to my business page as well. There is going to be a lot of information because I'm not going to be using my personal page and sharing to my personal page much longer. So make sure that you guys are also tapped into my business page as well. All right, guys, I love you all. Absolutely, absolutely, I definitely will. I love you all, and I hope you guys have an amazing night. We are right at 50 minutes, so I'm gonna look about 10 minutes over. All right,